Hi guys, welcome to another video. Hope you're all keeping well. Now, for this video, I'd just like to review the new Elvis biopic, the 4K of which I received yesterday and watched last night. Now, as usual, before I give you my thoughts on the movie as a whole, I'll just give you some background information on the production itself. Okay, so Elvis is a 2022 biographical musical drama directed by Baz Luhrmann. It stars Austin Butler as Elvis, Olivia de Jong as Priscilla Presley, and Tom Hanks as Colonel Tom Parker. Now, the movie is told not from the perspective of Elvis himself, but from that of his manager, Colonel Tom Parker. Wonder if that's a good idea. Right, okay, so on to my thoughts on the movie as a whole. Unfortunately, guys, as much as I so wanted to like this movie, I'm afraid to say it proved to be a major disappointment on every level. In fact, I disliked it so much that, to be honest, I'm surprised I managed to watch it right through to the end. And if I'd have gone to see it in the cinema, I think I might as well have walked out halfway through, if not earlier. Now, the movie's main flaw for me, and I had many guys believe me, was the way Elvis' story was told, from the perspective of Colonel Tom Parker. I mean, they might just as well have called it the life of Colonel Tom Parker rather than the life of Elvis. In my opinion, this was a very bad mistake. It's like a producer making a Beatles film, but concentrating solely on Brian Epstein rather than on the group, the group themselves. All right, I get it. That Colonel Parker played a huge part in helping Elvis rise to fame and fortune. But honestly, I mean, when you sit down to watch a biopic about a star, you do not want to hear mostly about the manager rather than about the star themselves. Why on earth did they do this? We Elvis fans wanted a serious biopic of the king of rock and roll's life, but sadly, in my opinion, we just did not get it with this movie. Also, the movie has the most infuriating, jarring openings of any movie I've seen of late. Parker's annoyingly muffled, droning voice, complete with corny, unrealistic accents, proceeds to relate the part he played in launching Elvis to international stardom. There then follows an almost vertigo-inducing series of swift montages of the young Elvis Presley. The swirling camera cuts, they're so frequent and frenetic and so hallucinogenic that they could be the kind of vision only a drugged-up junkie might experience. The instant I saw this, I thought, this is not boding well for my enjoyment of this movie. And as it turned out, my hunch was, unfortunately, so right. And what the hell was that inclusion of rap music all about? I mean, oh my days, in the words of John McEnroe, they cannot be serious. How dare they shove in horrid rap music in a biopic about Elvis Presley? I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. Big mistake. I mean, I don't like rap music at the best of times, but to include it in a bloody film about the greatest rock and roll star ever was beyond a joke. My annoyance with this movie was further stoked by the fact that the guy who played Elvis didn't sing all the songs right the way through. One or two lines, and then that was it, basically. And then we had to suffer another jump cut, another bloody montage. Another thing, guys, I hated about this movie was the occasional use of slow motion in both the physical and vocal performances of Elvis. I mean, come on. Was it really necessary to subject our eyes and ears to sights and sounds presented with, almost tortoise-like speed? Another major problem with this movie, guys, was that it didn't really touch on Elvis's relationship with his mother, his Memphis Mafia, his leading ladies, particularly Anne Margaret, or his wife. Basically just skimmed across the surface of that part. It also neglected to mention one of the great personal attributes Elvis was noted for, his unfailing generosity. I mean, for example, he only had to hear somebody saying that they would love a big fancy car, and in the blink of an eye, Elvis would make sure that they got it. Also, Elvis never made a big he never made a big thing about contributing money, to various charitable organisations. In my honest opinion, guys, this Elvis biopic absolutely failed on every level to captivate me in any way. I mean, I just felt like rather than watching a good, accurate, biopic of my all-time favourite entertainer, I was just watching an excessively fast-paced cutscene montage of a movie. The movie, for me, was just all over the place. In short, it just seemed like an overly long movie trailer. Now, that was what the whole experience felt like, and it left me feeling like I just lost nearly 3 hours of my life that I would never ever get back. Another thing that annoyed me about this Elvis biopic was that there was no real flow, to the film at all. It was virtually impossible to get to know any of the main characters, as the story constantly jumps from one scene to the next, compounding those abrupt cuts with equally annoying leaps backwards and forwards in time. I mean, what's with these modern movie makers, now that they love to cram their productions with superfluous jump cuts? Is lying here a dirty word with them now? Well, it seems to be. They can't seem to make a story in a proper linear, coherent fashion. I mean, one time, biopics, they were made properly, and that means in linear, logical fashion. So, I mean, I can cite some good examples of how biopics should be made. For example, the Jolson Story starred Larry Parks, Walk the Line, a Johnny Cash biopic. I can think of many, many more. Keep it linear, for God's sake, so that we can get a clear picture of every aspect of the star's life. Don't bloody confuse us with hallucinatory, jarring bloody scenes that repeatedly stray from the main story until we just feel like turning the bloody film off. Oh, so annoying. I hate it when a movie jumps from scene to scene to scene to scene. Doesn't seem to make any bloody sense at all. Another big fault with this movie, guys. Among the massive gaps in the complete story of Elvis's life was the all too fleeting way that Elvis's movie projects were presented. I mean, you just felt like he'd only made a handful of Pretty Girls on the Beach films, let alone such classics as Jailhouse Rock, Love Me Tender and King Creole, which, surprisingly, weren't touched on at all. Now, this whole period of Elvis's acting career was, in my opinion, just thoughtlessly and carelessly skimmed through in brief montages. Again, those damn bloody montages. I wish they'd leave them out of films. Even relegating it to a seemingly minor period in his life, which of course it certainly wasn't, as he made quite a few movies. Alright, a lot of them were sort of fairly comedy vehicles and that, but nevertheless, he had a good CV in terms of his, the part of his career in Hollywood. And as the film draws to a sorry end, you come away thinking, what the hell have I just watched? This was definitely not an accurate, vivid insight into the true life of Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. I also hated the way some aspects of Elvis's life were tweaked to an often untrue extent. Too much economy of the truth here, I'm afraid. There were quite a few scenes in the movie which just did not happen. For example, during the making of the Elvis '68 TV comeback special, everybody was depicted dressed in red Christmas jumpers, including Parker himself. Now, although there was some disagreements between Elvis and the Colonel, who did want a Christmas show, about this show and that, Parker really wanted it to be thoroughly Christmas right through, and that Elvis singing just Christmas songs. I mean, the Christmas jumper scenario was just totally untrue. It was a ridiculous addition to this segment in Elvis's life. And come to think of it, were Christmas jumpers really such a big thing back then? I think not. Then there was the part where Elvis really flares up at Colonel Parker whilst the manager was sitting in the audience of a big Elvis show, bitterly berating him, in no uncertain terms. you know, in front of all those people. Really, really nasty. Again, according to everything that I have read about Elvis over the years, and I have read a lot, guys, believe me, I've read loads and loads of books about the King of Rock and Roll. This scenario just, you know, as far as I can recall, it just didn't happen. And anyway, Elvis, he just wouldn't do that. He just wasn't that kind of person. He had a good upbringing by his parents, you know, and he always treated everybody with respect. He was very devout and that, went to church, you know, and he was always polite with everybody, you know, everybody he met and that, you know, he just wouldn't do it. You know, he treated everybody with respect, as I say. But what worries me, guys, about these untruths is, you know, any young person today who doesn't really know much about Elvis, you know, well, they're going to basically think, they're going to watch this movie and think, oh, he seemed like a right swine, a right bully. You know, well, nothing could be further from the truth, you know. So just think about it, though, guys. If Elvis really had got so nasty on stage with the Colonel, or indeed anybody else that happened to be sitting in the audience for that matter, don't you think it would have made national headlines at that particular time? I certainly do. Just wasn't that kind of person. Again, in my opinion, this movie was just totally pointless exercise, and one that certainly did not do either Elvis himself nor his fans any favours. Distorting the true facts of an entertainer's life is something I always loathe in biopics. They should just not do it, whether it's for pure entertainment purposes or not. Tell it like it was is my philosophy. Or just don't tell us at all. Don't make a lie about, you know, a person's life. You know, guys, I think there was a real missed opportunity here with this movie, because, you know, it could have been a really good movie, but instead, in my opinion, it's very poorly directed and edited. I just don't know why they even bothered, to be brutally honest. You know, I was really looking forward to this movie and that, and, you know, at the end of the day, it just fell flat on its face, I'm afraid. Now, I do know this movie does have its fans, but then, on the other side of the coin, there are also a lot of people like me who simply did not care for it at all. It's another one of those Marmite movies, regrettably. In saying that, though, don't you agree that the last thing you would want to do, you know, if you were a producer, is to run the risk of making a Marmite movie when it concerns the King of Rock and Roll himself, Elvis Presley? You know, whose very name alone, biopic or otherwise, should always assure the viewer that they will be entertained with a capital E. When Elvis is the subject of any movie production, then you better make sure you do a damn good job of it. If you like comparatively better biopics like the brilliant Walk the Line, then I really don't think this movie will be for you guys. I mean, honestly, it's completely devoid of any compelling character developments. The story is just overstuffed with annoying drum and bass cut scenes. It was not a patch on the 1979 John Carpenter biopic, Elvis, starring the great Kurt Russell. This movie was much more true to life, and most importantly of all, it was not ruined by infuriating montages, those bloody montages and jump cuts, those bloody jump cuts. Oh, and whilst we're on the subject of that Carpenter Elvis movie, did you know, guys, that Kurt Russell, who played Elvis in that film, actually acted with Elvis himself in the 1965 film It Happened at the Wales Fair? Kurt was the kid who Elvis persuaded to kick him in the chin so that he could keep going back to an ace that he had a big crush on. The things people do when they have a crush on a girl. So there you go, guys. There's my thoughts on this new Elvis biopic. On to a rating now for this film. I think I'll just give it a 4 out of 10, guys. Because in my opinion, that's all it deserves, really. This was an Elvis movie that should have been exclusively about Elvis, the King of Rock and Roll himself, and told from his viewpoints, just as the Kurt Russell biopic was the best, in my opinion, the best Elvis biopic ever made. It shouldn't have been told from Colonel Parker's perspective. You know, even my mum, who absolutely idolises Elvis, she really does, fell asleep during this movie, something she has never ever done you know, before, whilst watching anything at all relating to Elvis. You know, I mean, there really was a missed opportunity here, guys, and it's a real shame. You know, as I was so looking forward to this movie, but it just goes to prove the old adage, doesn't it? All that glitters is not gold. A lot of these movies are hyped up and that, and hyped up and hyped up, but when you get to see them yourself, oh, sheesh, you know. You know, it's, as I say, it's a shame, real missed opportunity in that. Yeah, and while I've got this in my hand, I'll just show you the special features there, guys. It's basically all about the making of the movie and that, you know, and various other aspects of the movie. Yeah, but as I say, guys, you know, I was really, really disappointed with this. I really was, and needless to say, I won't be giving it a rewatch. You know, it will be good. It'll be getting chucked on eBay. You know, so hopefully, fingers crossed, somebody will snap it up and that. Yeah. Oh yeah, it was just a generally boring. Well, not really. I wouldn't say really boring, but it was just like it wasn't a very entertaining movie. You know, and the colour wasn't very good either, and that, you know, especially in the parts in the early 50s and that, you know, when Elvis was showing as a little boy in that, and it left a lot out, guys. It really did. I say I really hated the way the guy who was playing Elvis, he didn't sing all the songs right through. As I say in that, you know, he'd sing a couple of lines in that, and then a jump and that, you know, to another montages, those bloody jump cuts. Yeah, I wish do you know what? I wish these modern producers had dispensed with them altogether. Because, you know, they build these movies up and that, say they make a movie about a great star such as Elvis and that. You think it's going to be a real good line here, factual story of the man's life and that. But what did we get? What did we get with this movie? Those bloody montages and those hallucinatory scenes and that made you feel all the time if you're just dreaming the whole bloody thing, you know. And as I say, a lot of things left out of it, and I did not like the apocryphal scenarios, you know, the untruths and that. Yeah, I say, always hate it when they tweak a movie and that, you know, sort of like just for entertainment purposes and that. Yeah. All right then, guys. So there you go. That's my review of the new Elvis biopic and that. What did you think of it? You know, did you like it? Now, did you share my opinion? It was a very, very poor adaptation of Elvis's life. Elvis's life in general. Leave the comments down below. I'd be very interested to hear, you know, what you thought of it and that. Yeah. All right then, guys. Well, that's it. That concludes my review of the Elvis 2022 biopic. I'll be back here very, very soon with another video. All right then, guys. Take care. Bye for now.